from getting kicked out of the Air Force to moving to Hawaii with a plan to start a distribution company and growing that distribution company in Hawaii to having 150 employees and doing 15 million a year in sales. Nick Smallwood is truly an example of persistence and dedication. And we dive today into what led to his successes and what drives why he works so hard to maintain balance in his life. His sage advice is going to be valuable for anybody trying to make a transition out of the military. And I'm excited to share this interview with you. I think you're going to take a lot away from it. Let's get after it.
Most people you talk to when transitioning out of the military have never actually transitioned out themselves. You're probably getting a bunch of opinions from people who plan on staying in until retirement and have no idea how to actually show empathy for your situation. This podcast is about providing fresh perspectives and a front row seat for conversations with successful veterans doing big things after leaving the military.
Griffin and I served together.
Nice to meet you.
He was my XO when I was a commander
okay.
in an airborne unit.
Right.
He's an incredible guy. I think we both transitioned really recently, as you know.
Yeah.
So this podcast is more just trying to give people outside the box understanding of what a transition can look like.
Okay.
So not necessarily what the military just tells you should get into,
Right.
but giving people perspectives from individuals like yourself,
From
like,
the civilian
hey,
world.
yeah, like this is stuff you don't hear about when you're surrounded by a bunch of people who stayed in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're trying to give people perspective.
Okay.
And yeah, we can jump right into it. So we can start by just give us your background. What have you been doing lately, and what did you start doing?
I have a colored story, a checkered path, if you will. Born and raised in DC. Parents divorced when I was really young, and then my mother took most of the kids, the other 4 siblings, to Los Angeles. I stayed with my dad in DC, and then I went back and forth as I got in trouble. One parent would be like, okay, I've had him for 2 years. He's been a handful. You take him back. I'd go back. And then woke up one day at finishing up high school and decided to go into the Air Force. Joined the Air Force, went to the recruiter and said, hey, you don't have to sell me on anything. Just sign me up. So went to the Air Force and did some amazing things in the Air Force. I was immediately a rope in basic and a rope in tech school. And I did all this leadership stuff, but made one silly mistake one weekend where needed some money for the weekend. Went to a relative who was a drug dealer in DC at the time. I was stationed at Andrews Air Force Base right back at home, which was really silly for the most part. And she gave me 10 dime bags of marijuana, and I decided that, hey, you'd lost your mind. What am I going to do with this? I hadn't dealt with drugs since I was 14 as a gangbanger in LA. And she said, oh, the military, the guys will smoke. It'll be fine. You'll be able to sell it without any problem. I thought, you've lost your mind. There's no way. I went back to the barracks and sold 8 of the 10 bags in like 5 minutes. I was floored. So I had my money for the weekend, but I had 2 left. And for some reason, all of a sudden I got paranoid. So I put them in my freezer and I'm like, I'm scared to flush them. I'm scared to trash them. This is crazy. And about 2 months later, one of the guys who had gotten busted smoking and probably popped positive on the test came to me and said, hey, you got any more of that stuff? And I said, dude, I got 2 bags in my freezer and you can have them. And as I went to my dorm room, gave him the 2 bags. As I'm walking away, he puts a $20 bill in my back pocket. I go, dude, I take it out here. You can have it. I don't want the money. I want nothing to do with this, right? And he's like, no, I got to do you a solid. I can't take it for free. It's not like that. And then 2 days later, I got arrested for possession and distribution of marijuana. So went to the stockade at Fort Meade, and then I was at Fort Riley and locked up and went to trial. And luckily for me, because of my previous record, the JAG officer was really, really kind to me and basically said, hey, look, you have been in no trouble since you've been here. Your father is sitting in the gallery, you know, crying his poor heart out because he thought I was never going to amount to anything and I had ruined my life. And so what we're going to do is we're going to allow you to stay in after you serve your time. We're going to give you 5 months, bust you down to E1, take 3/4 of your pay, and then at the end, you can go back to active duty. We'll find something for you. Well, after doing my 5 months at Fort Riley, the ugly thing was that there were two or three guys that had had a similar sentence, but they had been waiting in minimum security for over a year to be reassigned.
Mm.
So when my time came up, they gave me the option to stay in and wait for it to and get reclassified or get out with a general under honorable conditions. And I took the general under honorable, got out, and then um, moved to LA at the time. When I got out, it was really cold winter day. They flew me back into DC. A cold winter day. I remember it being miserable. I called my mother, said, "Hey, I'm out now. I want to come back to LA and try to put some things together." And she welcomed me back with open arms. And then I ended up getting in trouble again one more time with Merrill Lynch, and then had decided after that incident that crime didn't pay for me.
Mhm.
So I ended up going to work for a transportation company as a courier, and they said you're too articulate and too well kept, because I had learned all these things while working at Merrill Lynch before I screwed up there, and we want to put you in customer service. And from there it just took off, and woke up one day here probably 10 years later at a reception for a wedding, and thought I'd start my own company here. Didn't know a soul. My two-seater Mazda RX-7, flew it here, and never looked back.
Right.
Never looked back.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about the company you started here.
So I started a transportation company here called Mainland Express, and it was interesting because I did my homework before I moved here and called different companies to see if they could use same day courier service. And I called about 8 or 9 companies. They all were like, "Yes, we can use that kind of service. Absolutely." I moved here, and to this day, none of those 8 companies ever used me, ever. And
Wow.
here we are talking 33 years later, and the companies that I moved here for never used me.
Right.
But I managed to go from one car and myself and my studio apartment in Ala Moana to 150 employees, 15 million a year in sales, and approximately 35,000 deliveries a month. And I just
Wow.
never looked back.
Wow.
And now we pick up and deliver anywhere in the free world. I could move this entire house to probably Paris in 3 days if someone was willing to pay for
Nice.
it.
Make it for the closing ceremonies of the Olympics.
Right? There you go.
No, that's amazing. I feel like, you know, a lot of the people we've been interviewing have had their transitions have been intentional,
Mhm.
and they've laid groundwork before they pulled the trigger to get out. But it sounds like you basically started from scratch in LA.
I did.
Okay.
I did. I started from scratch in an industry that I did not even have any idea it existed. I
Mhm.
actually stumbled into it because by the time I got done fooling around in Los Angeles, I was a convicted felon by the time I was 20, and didn't think anybody else would take me, right? Didn't think that I could get in anywhere as a convicted felon. So I went into the courier business, and it just turned out to be something that I had a knack for. Ended up having a knack for logistics and organizing things.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel so. And again, some of the themes have been, you know, we want to tell people that what they get into immediately upon exit isn't what they have to be in for the next 40 years.
Right.
You can kind of dabble and figure out what works for you. And then once you kind of see that civilian side, then you might actually be exposed to some things that you want to do. So you did, what did you do with Merrill Lynch that was different from the courier side?
Merrill Lynch was the brokerage industry. I went there as a messenger, worked in their mail room, and people saw my abilities and then took me into other parts of the industry. So I ended up was a margin clerk, and so and then eventually I worked at the operations center. They were starting to build these operations centers instead of each individual Merrill Lynch office having an operations office. They build a center that serviced 10 to 15 Merrill Lynch offices at a time. So they were
Okay.
like hubs.
Okay.
Um, and I think that what challenges most people is their own fears. Uh, I didn't have any fear because for me, those two different places where I was with Merrill Lynch and with the Air Force were rock bottom for me. So I, as afraid as I was, I still did it. When I came to Hawaii, I was only here for a weekend. I went back home, quit my job where I was making $90,000 a year as a general manager for a transportation company, gave them 60 days notice, and just came to Hawaii with $1,500, a FICO score, if it even existed at that time, of like 125, and 4 tax liens against my credit. And so the folks that are coming out of the military are coming out with such an incredible head start
Mhm.
that I think that what throws people off is that they're coming out with such a head start that they're one of two things. They're either comfortable or they're not hungry. And I think those are probably the two biggest obstacles of reentry. You have to be hungry again
Mhm.
to really want to go out there and do it, or you have to do all of those things that you're afraid of and just do them anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, I think that's such a great point. In the hunger can be, it can be because of your experiences. And if you don't have anything that's like really making you hungry, you got to find that. You
Right. So
got to
you got
identify it.
people coming out of the military. Imagine, like they talk about, you shouldn't feed wild animals because when you put them back out in the wild, they're so used to being fed that they die, right? They cease to exist because they don't know how to hunt. It's the exact same concept with humans. Folks are coming out of the military with housing allowances, and they're coming out with money from retirement and money from injuries and medical discharges and things like that, and they're coming out with enough money to sustain them, to minimally sustain them, and to some degree some people are coming out middle class.
Mhm.
So they're coming out middle class. They have anywhere between 25 and 40 more years to live, and that money is going to feed them, but they also still have a hunger to do more and be more, but because they're being fed,
Yeah.
they don't know how to hunt anymore.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
forgot how to hunt.
Right. Yeah, no, and I think the question is, what are you hunting? And that transition, some people take it and they do exactly what they were doing in the military and they kind of apply that. And some people completely change and find what they're gonna want to pursue. And that's what we're trying to do here is say, hey, just because you were an IT specialist in the Air Force or whatever job you did, that doesn't have to be what you do when you get out. You need to find that thing that you can sprint towards and learn and have that uphill battle, so to speak, but the uphill battle might actually be more benefit for you in the long term.
Well, they're coming out comfortable.
Hmm.
They're coming out comfortable, and so I would look at it as an opportunity to do some wild and crazy things and take some risk, because if it fails, I got something to fall back on. I'm not going to fall very far,
Right.
right? I'm just going to fall back to middle class or lower middle class, whatever they're coming out with, whatever income they're coming out with. You're not going to fall very far. So it's a perfect opportunity to do whatever you dreamt, wherever you wanted to live.
Hmm.
Take all of those chances because you still have your youth, and in some cases you have time for not only a second career but even a third career
Right.
when these guys are getting out, because they're going in so young. These men and women are going in so young, but they're coming out fed. They're coming out with a refrigerator full of food, a cupboard full of food, a car, all the things that someone that didn't have the opportunity to go into the military aren't don't have those head starts.
Right.
And so
Right.
and so they're not as hungry.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I don't know how you create hunger in someone. It's like having children. Each generation has it easier than the next. And at some point, come generation 12, 13, 14, 15, they're going to be basically useless because everything's given to them and it's so easy.
Hmm.
So, how do you create that hunger in someone that's exiting the military? How do you get them to do one of two things, either follow their dreams or get hungry again?
Hmm.
That's really key. That's what I think is really key to successful reentry,
Right.
is finding one of those two things and finding it quickly before you get too comfortable.
Right. I'm assuming with 150 employees, do you have many veterans that come out of Hawaii?
I have a lot of veterans that
Okay.
come out of Hawaii.
Is there anything that you've seen that really enables people to stand out within your company as they transition? Like people who maybe figured out how to create that hunger and drive?
It's interesting. They come into, and I never thought about it until you just asked that question. They come into the workplace, but they actually come into the workplace to some degree settling there as well. They're not really hungry to be managers
Mm,
or VPs of sales or CEOs.
right.
They really are coming in for additional income, and those two incomes, I think, also is what make them okay, what makes them settle, because
Mhm.
they're okay again. Again, if you're coming out of the military with any kind of income that wherever you go to live, you can live comfortably, you have to create that hunger, you have to create that drive within yourself. It's not, you're not going to wake up with it. You're going to
Right.
have to intentionally create it for yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Nick, you mentioned that it was a big risk moving to Hawaii, and you took several risks along the way. Is was there? I have to imagine there were other opportunities at the time that you chose that risk over those opportunities. Or there were other things. How would you advise other other veterans or other people that are transitioning to take those risks over the comfortable opportunities?
See, I look at this whole thing of life as a game. We're given resources, and our job is to do as much as we can with the resources we were given. So I dream. I'm in the middle of writing screenplays. I have three great screenplays because I'm tired of watching dumb stuff on Netflix that I've started writing. I'm writing a book on my life because I have such an insane, crazy, fun life that I just recently got divorced, and my dating life has just been insane that I can't even believe this kind of stuff happens that I'm writing a book on. Um, I'm constantly coming up with different things, and even though I'm more than comfortable, I got a crazy great life. If I did nothing else, I'm still looking at all the things I've dreamt about and going, okay, remember, Nick, you used to dream about this. Now you have an opportunity to go after that dream and have some fun with that. And I think that one of the things when I went into the military because I didn't know what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I had no idea what it took to go to college, grants or loans. My parents were broke, so I didn't have college wasn't an option for me. So when I went in, it was to do something different, something constructive until I figured it out. So my life has been constantly looking back at what did you dream about and have you accomplished that? If you look at my
Mm.
yearbook, there's something in there about me being a golf professional. Well, guess what? I grew up in the city. I never touched a golf club until I was 40 years old. Today, I'm a four handicap. Again, these are things that I looked at in my life and dreamt about that I'm now going back to that book of dreams and I'm going through each page and go, okay, you dreamt about this. Do you still want to do this? Or I dabble in it and see if something else sticks. You, we are living longer now by 3 years every 10
Right.
years. We are living longer. So that money eventually is going to run out. If we are retiring, imagine someone retiring at 65, still having another 30 years to live. Now we're conceivably talking about four careers.
Mhm.
If we're looking at 20, 25-year careers, you could conceivably have three or four careers by the time you pass away.
Right.
So what do you do with those? What do you do with all those extra years? If you're not hungry and you're not living your dreams, you're going to just simply die.
I love that. Is there, there's a lot of people talk about the concept of a misogi where it's like doing one hard physical event every year. They like schedule it in advance so they make sure they're doing something to challenge themselves because it's so easy to fall into that complacency or getting used to the easier lifestyle. Is there a way that you approach each year, approach different seasons of life, scheduling things into to go back to that list of dreams and do things that challenge you or excite you on a regular basis?
Okay, this is going to blow you guys away. October 22nd, 2019, I broke my back. I could not walk for 8 months. I could not play golf. I was a four handicap then, 4.3 handicap then. I could not play golf for 2 years. Today, I'll be 64 November 1st, and I'm in the best shape I've been in my life. And you
Wow.
wouldn't know at all that I broke my back
Mm.
and lost complete use of my right side back in 2019. You have to be hungry. You have to face your fears, and you have to dream and you have to go after your dreams. If you don't do any of that, you will just stop move. You will just simply exist and suck up the resources that you have and just simply fade away into the abyss. I work out 5 days a week. I have a personal trainer that gives me homework. For each month. And at the end of each month, she sends me all of next month's exercises to do. She sends me with weights and reps. And at the end of each week, I send her back how the week went. And then she updates things. She'll go, okay, do 4 more reps of this or add 10 more pounds here. Um, Find someone you can be accountable to. That's very helpful. Find someone that motivates you that you don't want to disappoint. I think that a lot, quite often, we come out of like coming out of the military. Quite often, they come out and and they've lost the fight because they're now being fed, and they don't really have anyone to be accountable to because whether they get out of bed or not, that check's going to show up. If you don't have anything to be accountable to, if you don't fight your fears and you don't chase your dreams, what are you getting out of bed for? You've got to find that reason every day to get out of bed. You got to face that fear. You know, I'm up to about 85-pound dumbbells on my flat bench press at 64 years old. I'm next to guys that are just doing half that weight. My motivation is when I see those young guys is like, yeah, buddy, I can keep up with you. So I've created some competition also in all of this, right? So I guess those might be the 4 factors: fear, competition, accountability, and dreams. If if you can get someone, your children, your relatives, if you can get them to just hang on to one of those categories and chase that for the rest of their lives, they will probably do very, very well and live very satisfied.
With your success during while your kids were alive, right? How did you entice that out of them, or how did you get them to understand those concepts when they probably had a little bit easier life than you did?
My kids have a crazy easy life, and so I intentionally say no to them. I
Mhm.
intentionally say no to them. When I go to the country club and have dinner or have lunch or play some golf and I'm having drinks with friends afterwards and my kids go, "Hey dad, can I come over and bring my friends to grab something to eat over at the country club?" I go, "No, go to McDonald's. This is my time. This is my
Right,
entertainment. Go to
right,
McDonald's."
right.
I have a decent car. When my kids go, "Dad, can I take your car? I'm going to the gym. I'm going to the store. I'm going to my friend's house." No. But if you're going to a prom, of course you can use
Right.
my car for the prom. If you're going to, something in a special event, yeah, you can drive my car.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you have a car, drive your car. That's what we got it for.
Right.
So you have to you have to be intentional about a lot of things. You have to be cognizant that, okay, I want to give my kids the best and I want to make it easy for them, but I've never seen a kid die from crying, right? I've never seen a kid die from being disappointed. But you'd be surprised at what those tears and that disappointment, what kind of character it builds in your kids. You know, my oldest son just finished up as mayor of a California city. And he had the nerve to call me and ask me one day, could he have his inheritance early? He wanted to pay off his house so he wouldn't have that mortgage. He'd have that extra money to go do something else. And my response to him was, go do something else anyway. And I hope I can leave you $5 when it's all said and done because I'm spending it all. You got your head start, right? I grew up dreaming, again, a dream, had no idea. I grew up dreaming, going, you know what? When I have kids, I'm going to give them a brand new car, a college education, and a down payment for a house. That's it. That's all they get. If they can't make it from there, then they were never going to make it and they were just going to suck up resources. So then, if they turn out to be that human, then it's just maintenance and you give them the minimum to keep them fed, to keep them alive.
Mhm.
But you still want to create a hunger in them. You have to create a hunger in them. You have to have them chasing their dreams. You just can't give them everything because once you do, they stop being effective human beings.
Are you
Makes
familiar
sense.
with the die with zero concept?
I'm not.
It's
Never heard
the
of it.
it's a book by a guy named Bill Perkins, and he talks about he's an energy trader. He's made a crazy amount of money throughout his life, and his concept is to spend that money while you're alive on experiences with your kids, spend it on what you're really passionate about, so that
Hmm.
and if there is, if you want to give anything to your kids, I'm with you. I like the minimum approach, but if you want to give something to your kids, give it to them. They'd rather have that in an experience, or while they're receiving that with you, as opposed to just some lump sum after after you pass, and then it's like, kind of an afterthought, and it's something that they can't experience with their parents. So it sounds a lot like what you're talking about. Spend the money that you've built and accumulated earlier, rather than saving up till till you pass, and then it goes to some charity or an inheritance that you don't even have a part with.
Yeah, money for me, um, I, I is a standard of measurement. The more money I have tells me that what I'm doing, the dreams I'm chasing, the fears I'm conquering, I are right. I'm doing it right. At the end of the day, though, I'm not doing it for the money. I'm actually doing it for the freedom, because money allows me to be free. The more money I have, the more I can. No, and I actually overslept today, so I actually woke up at 6 a.m. and that's oversleeping for me, because I'm usually up somewhere between 4:30 and 5:30, and I woke up, all discombobulated because I had overslept. Um, but my day is, I wake up at 5 o'clock. I go to the gym. Wednesday's a recovery day for me. So I go to the gym. I go to the office. I'm in the office by 8:30. I leave the office by 12:30. I grab something to eat and I go play 18 holes. There are people that are never get out of their house, that are saving and trying to create that life for themselves. They're dreaming of it, and I get to live it every single day. But I don't consider myself successful, because I still I'm still not doing everything, believe it or not, that I would want to do on any given day. But the money creates so much freedom, but we shouldn't use that freedom to do nothing. We should use it to conquer our fears. And if we want to call it making ourselves better, then that's fine. You can call it whatever you need to say to motivate yourself, right? Whatever you need to call it, whatever you want to label it to motivate yourself is fine. I'm purely making as much money as I can to be as free as I can. So Annie Lennox once said that she wants to remove herself from the general public. And when we talk about freedom, I have not flown coach in 15 years. I wouldn't know what coach even looks like. I haven't flown it in 15 years. Interestingly enough, I stopped flying coach because I ended up with an anxiety, not claustrophobia, but claustrophobia, where you have a fear of being trapped. And I didn't fly for a year and a half. And so I was scared to death of flying, because every time someone came down the aisle and blocked me, or I was close enough to see the door in the airplane shut, it would make my skin crawl. So I could do one of two things. I could either stop flying, make enough money to fly first, and hopefully the lie down flat seats and all that extra space gave me the room to be free, or I could conquer my fear. Well, guess what? I did all of it. I got into trunks of cars and shut myself in trunks of cars. That's how I found out there was a difference between claustrophobia and claustrophobia. The fear of tight spaces is one thing, a fear of being trapped is another.
Mm.
That fear of being buried alive is about being trapped, not claustrophobia, right? So what happened was I started getting in the closets and things like that. And I'm like, hey, this is no big deal. I wonder why I can't do this. And then my kid walked over and said, you couldn't get out of the, I'm going to hold the door so you can't get out. He was just joking. And I freaked out. And then it hit me what was going on with me. Again, when you're coming out of, when you're re-entering life in general, you you have to dream, you have to conquer your fears, you have to continue to be hungry. These are the things that make life worth living, right? If you brought life down to one word for every single cell, it's survival. And when you don't have that thirst to survive anymore. You cease to exist. It's just the way. And I can't even tell you where I got all this from. I've just over years and over time, just started to develop, and I guess again, seeking an understanding of who I am and why I do what I do is finding labels and words. And sometimes I find books. Sometimes I'll read a book and I'll just chuckle and stop reading the book. First chapter, I'll read this book and go, Jesus Christ, I live like this already. This is a waste of $18, you know? Or then I'll continue to read it. Money. Money burns my pockets. Perfect example. If I let it, I'd be wearing Gucci belts and Louis Vuitton shoes. But guess what? I said to myself, Nick, okay, so money burns your pockets. You got to figure out some kind of way other than just pissing it away to handle this. So what did I do? I said, I'm just going to invest it. When I got extra money, I'm going to invest it. And it actually solved that sensation to piss away money.
Mhm.
But so I spent it, but it really kind of didn't go anywhere.
Right.
And then it grew for me. So I was into Bitcoin before people knew what Bitcoin was. I was buying real estate before, I'm buying real estate in places that I'd love to visit and go, ooh, I love South Beach. So I bought a place in South Beach, right? I ended up with some extra money. I bought a place in South Beach. There's nothing that I'm doing that every single person that I come across every day can't do. You can get past a broken back. You can get past a fear, some kind of anxiety. You can get past of being broke and mismanaging money. You can get past being, complacent. You can get past all of these things if you just chase your dreams, if you just conquer your fears, if you just go out there and look for the whys of why you do everything and solve those whys, you can have an incredible life.
Right.
An incredible life.
Yeah, I think that's a great message. I feel like it is, we mentioned previously too, it's so easy, but it's so hard, right? People, for some reason, there's a barrier there to working hard and to choosing to go above and beyond what the normal would be. And I feel like if people can just get past that, they'll realize how easy it is to just do the right thing or to do the thing that supports your next goal. And it's, the purchasing things or, eating the foods or what have you, it's not supporting what your long-term goals are. But if you flip that switch and you can actually, hey, here's this set of things that I need to accomplish now to actually get to where I want to be. If people actually do that, then they'll be more successful that way.
It's not an all or nothing thing. And I think that's where most folks begin, and they go, okay, I need to buy a house. And instead of they're thinking, okay, I got 4 kids and need to buy a home. Those folks in third world countries are coming to countries like ours and being successful because they know it's not all or nothing, and they understand moderation. They understand that the incremental successes build to bigger successes and greater success overall. So, okay, I'm going to come out of the military. I'm going to re-enter the civilian world. I have this safety net, but let's use that safety net as a foundation, as a support to now really do what I really want to do, to dream as big as I want to dream. And you can even help other folks with your wife, your kids. You can even help them with their dreams. It doesn't just stop with you, but you have to face it. You have to decide for yourself.
Right.
That do you really want to settle and be here 35 years from now, or what do you want your life to look like 35 years from now? Again, I don't consider myself successful because for me it's just all part of the process.
Mhm.
I'm just headed in a direction, and one of two things is I don't even know what the high of high is. I don't know where the top is. I don't know. I know where the bottom is, right? I know where the bottom is, and actually where I am today is my new bottom, right? Maybe that's another way to look at it, is that every time you accomplish something, that becomes your new bottom. That's not your top or your safety net. That's your new bottom.
Right.
Maybe that would help some folks.
Yeah.
I think a common theme amongst those that are transitioning out is the inability to translate their military skills to the civilian world, and especially prevalent amongst those that do combat roles. If they if they've been pulling triggers and kicking in doors. It's like, how does that translate to a civilian job? And I think, if you really think about it, there's a million ways that that translates, but it can be hard to really make that transition to demonstrate what you've been doing in the military and how that would be a value add to an employer or to a startup or to whatever venture somebody pursues. And I think many might be asking, Nick, like, how did you go from, you know discharged from the military, uh, short stint at Merrill Lynch to now a $15 million company? I have to assume there were skills that you picked up in some of those former prior experiences that then have translated to your success now. Could you speak to what some of those are?
Wow. I was an electrician in the Air Force. So that's, how do you go from being an electrician to logistics? Um, I I didn't limit myself. I did not limit myself to one specific talent. We have we're if and I guess I would liken it to that if I'm an infantryman and I'm on the battlefield, and then I get discharged, the discipline that it took to get there is you just take the same discipline, you take the same skeleton of and you apply that to anything, getting up on time, getting there on time, doing the best that you can do in that job. There are all of these different things that go along with it that that you can take with you anywhere. One of the guys that works for me, Bobby, he was in the Marines, and he was a gunnery sergeant, and he's my supervisor of my logistics department, and he is insanely effective, very regimented, but he's taken that discipline and applied it to logistics, applied it to counting boxes. And I think in our warehouse, we have 100,000 square foot warehouse here in Oahu. I think we have maybe 350,000 different computer parts, pieces of computers for various tech companies in my warehouse. And Bobby and four other guys manage that, and they manage it with precision. So Bobby's not shooting guns. He's not rolling around in the mud. He's not running through forest. He's not jumping out of planes, but he's applying the same discipline it took to do those things to do these things. And it works. And I think he's been with me now maybe 8 years, 8, 9 years. My company also gives people second chances. People that have been incarcerated and are looking for second chances come there and do incredibly well. We really are only limited as people. We are only as limited as our imaginations. Once you, if you sit there and tell yourself, I tell people when I play golf all the time, whether you think you can or think you can't, in either case, you're probably right.
Mhm.
What the story you tell yourself is the story you're going to live. So if you want a different life, tell yourself a different story.
You said you also recently had a speaking engagement about like a second chance type of thing. Other than your business specifically giving opportunities, do you do anything else for second chance?
Oh my gosh, what don't I do? And I never think about what I do until someone asks me. I've spoken to colleges for a career week. I've spoken to agencies in the local governments. There's some folks that that have classes for kids coming out of foster homes before they get released from foster homes, and how to save money and rent an apartment, and teach them life skills. I've spoken to those folks. And I've spoken to hedge fund folks, or not, more like donors. They call them impact um, venture capitalists, where they loan money to companies of people that are trying to get second chances, people that have grown up in marginal environments, um, and help fund, give them grants and loans to help them start businesses. I've spoken to folks like that. I really don't think I do anything that's special. I really don't think I do anything that not every single person in the world can do. Um, everybody can be Nick and live like Nick. There's enough love and enough money and enough food for every single human on this earth to be happy. You just have to change your story. You just have to tell yourself a different story.
We ask the same question to every single person, and that is one ask and one give. We give you a chance to send out an ask to those listeners. So you can ask anything from something maybe you need a connection with or something you need help on. It just gives people a way to possibly open the door to be able to reach out to you and say, hey, I'm able to follow through on what you said you needed. So one ask and one give. We can start with the ask if you have anything.
Nothing. The only thing I guess I could ask people to I challenge you to change your story. I challenge you to change your narrative. I challenge you to wake up tomorrow morning and tell yourself a completely different story of who you're going to be, who you want to be, who you can be, and start from there. And tell yourself a different story starting tomorrow morning, every single morning until you get there.
Yeah. And then one give, it can be as simple as a piece of advice. Doesn't have to be anything crazy. You've already given quite a few sage pieces of advice, but
my favorite quote, and I can't, it's been so long, it's been my favorite for so long, I can't even remember it. That success is waking up in the morning and going to bed at night and in between doing exactly what you wanted to do. That's success. Forget what all of these other labels of what success is supposed to mean. It means something different to everybody, but in general, it just means just that. You wake up in the morning and you go to bed at night, and in between, anything and everything you wanted to do, you were able to do. That is really what success is. That's what it is to me.
yeah.
Man, I kind of just want to end it right there. That was incredible, man.
Yeah, because I'm all choked up just thinking about it, just hoping that it reaches somebody and affects somebody. I'm all choked up over here and tearing up because when it just I if people could just feel it and see what I'm seeing and see that, tough decisions make your life really, really easy. Easy decisions make your life tougher. If they could just see how true it is, how real it is, we would have so little misery and unhappiness in the world. If they could just see it. I've lived it. I've lived it at every single turn. I don't give my power away to anything. Nothing makes me mad all day. Nothing hurts me all day. Nothing disappoints me all day. You can have moments of those things, but I'm not giving my power up to anything, to anybody, to do anything less than what I want to do every day for very long. You can have it for a moment. You can make me mad for a moment. You can disappoint me for a moment. You're not getting the morning. You're not getting all morning. You're not getting the afternoon. You're not getting all the evening. You're certainly not getting a day, and you're certainly not getting a week or a month or a year.
Right.
When I broke my back, my wife at the time used to get angry with me and said, "You need to stop laughing and smiling and having fun. The nurses aren't going to know how much pain you're in." And I said to her, "I can feel my body in degrees getting better. I'm celebrating those degrees of better."
Yeah.
That's what I would get.
Well, you reached me, Nick, and I'm 6 time zones away, so thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. I love doing this kind of stuff. I never know what I'm going to say or what I'm going to do. I walked down the street. I kept watching the clock, and Jack had asked me to do it, and I didn't want to disappoint Jack, and I didn't want to be that neighbor that didn't come through for another neighbor. And I walked down the street and did it. And every time I do these things, I get the same butterflies and I get the same nervousness. But again, I'm just telling my story, and hopefully it helps them. If it helps one person and one family, one couple, one business, then I've accomplished something.
Absolutely.
Well, it sounds like Jack needs to get out on that golf course behind his house with you for a time or two to learn a couple things.
I know I'm definitely not a 4 handicap, so I do need some pointers.
When I describe my golf game, it's handicapped, but there's no number associated. It's just
Yeah,
handicap.
yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I love this game. It's emotional, it's physical,
Hmm.
it's mental. And but that's where I get my solitude. People, some people get energized and get re-energized and re-energized and all those things by being around more people. People in general take away from me. I get depleted. The more people I deal with on any given day, the more it depletes me. And my solitude is what refills my tanks and gets me going. So I'm out on the course most days at 1 o'clock. I play 18 holes in 3 hours, 2 hours and 45 minutes, 3 hours on a good day. And I'm replenished and I come back in and I'm ready to deal with the world, after I've done that. So I don't know where I got it from. I don't know what made me play it. I've really played no other sports growing up in the city. I didn't have that opportunity to play any other sports, any organized sports. I picked up golf really, really late. I was here in Hawaii in Waikiki, and I walked over. I was living across the street in a studio apartment. I was in a studio apartment across the street from a Alawai golf course, and I went over there to the driving range, and this guy, Scotty Kaneko, 17 years ago, was there, and he ended up becoming a coach for me. And I said to him, "What's this golf thing all about?" And he says, "You got $5?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Give me $5." I gave him $5. He gave me a 9 wood and a basket of balls and says, "Hit these that way." And, he was being funny, but I went out there and did exactly that, right? I went out there and went, okay, let me try that. And I've just been in love with it ever since. And so it's one of the few things that no matter where you go in the world, no matter what language you speak, no matter how tall or short or gender or no matter who you are, the game is the same everywhere in the world.
Mhm.
And I've used it as a springboard to go to places around the world that I would have never gone to otherwise because or enjoy otherwise because I would go to a hotel and go to shopping, eat the food, get on a plane, come back home. Now I'm actually going out and playing rounds of golf in Mexico City and in Europe and in the Caribbean and meeting people and talking to
Right.
people and learning things, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard like the definition between extrovert and introvert is just that. It's not there's negative connotations to both, but I think it's where you draw energy from. So
Mhm.
if you draw energy from other people, that's kind of what an extrovert can be. Whereas if you draw energy from that solitude, that's more introvert. And there's plenty of introverts who are CEOs of companies who are very highly capable, and there's plenty of extroverts who don't have that knack for actually getting things done. But I heard that and I love that. 'Cause Courtney and I are very opposite. We'll do an open house together and we'll see 20 people and I'll leave there just energized. I
Right.
love it. And she's just completely drained. And it's just because of where we draw energy from. She's similar to how you mentioned, like
Yeah.
her solitude is what revitalizes her.
Yeah, I tell people I'm an introvert by I'm an introvert by nature, but I'm an extrovert by necessity.
Right.
I can go work a room of 400 people. I can sit in a room with 400 CEOs and I will be just fine. But once I leave that room and get in my car or get on the train to go wherever I'm going, I'm like, God, I'm so glad this is over. Now I can go sit at Starbucks and regroup and re-energize and yeah, it's know who you are, and it's okay to be who you are, but just learn that again, that's just not the end of it. Your
Right.
story only ends where you say to yourself the end.
Yeah.
That's where your story ends. And so many people don't realize that they can have so much control over their lives, and over anything you want to do. When I'm playing golf and somebody says, oh my gosh, there's water there, or there's trees there, or there's the bunker. My very first comment is that what trees? What bunker?
Mhm.
What what water? My I'm so focused on the target, on the fairway, on the green, on the flag, all of those obstacles that are naturally put in your way at a golf course to make it more difficult. I don't see.
Right.
And if I hit into those places, I take my medicine and keep it moving, or I learned to hit driver off the deck. Like I can hit a driver 180, 190 yards off the deck. And I wasn't doing it on purpose. And then thought one day when I got into some trees, I need that shot. So I hit a driver out of trees off the ground, and people are like, what the hell are you doing? Why are you doing that? I'm like, every bad shot. And I think golf is a lot like life. And I don't know where I came up with this analogy, but I'm telling you now, if you play with someone and they cheat at golf, they probably cheat at life. If
Mhm.
you play with someone that has integrity and play the game by the rule, play the game the way the rules are meant to be played, they probably live that way. You can tell a lot about a person about by the way they play golf.
Mhm.
And but I learned early on that every bad shot in golf that you make, if you can figure out how to make that bad shot again, is probably a good shot that's going to save you somewhere.
Mhm.
If you keep hitting the ball low across the ground 150 yards, please learn how to do that shot on purpose because you're going to need that shot one day,
Right.
right?
Right.
And it's a lot like life. If you think about it, it's a game that's a lot like life. You get to
Right.
penalize yourself in your life. You get to tell yourself that story,
Yeah.
right? You get to take those bad shots and make them good shots in the future. You get to take those good shots and celebrate them. It's a
Mhm.
lot like life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes the bad shot kind of show, like a good shot comes out of it,
Yes.
right? Some of Tiger Woods' best shots, like the highlights were after bad shots where he ended up in a bunker or in the woods or something like that. So you can apply that to
Yeah.
life too.
I think my most memorable Tiger Woods shot is he was 211 yards away from the green in a bunker, and he hit it, and he had to go out of the bunker, under trees, and over water. And he hit that shot with a six iron to like 3 feet. It's like my most memorable Tiger
Right.
Woods shot of all time would probably be that shot.
Hmm.
And that's a lot like life. Sometimes you're in a bunker, you got to go under trees, you got to go over water, but you still got to hit your target.
Right.
And you take that shot, you focus, you take that shot, and you make the shot.
Yeah.
You just make the shot. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again.
My
I
pleasure.
know
My
it's
pleasure. That's a lot of information.
an
That's
hour of your
that's
time.
64 years of living on all different sides of life, living different all over the world and doing all sorts of crazy things to
Yeah.
try to get to where to try to get to where I am today. I'm living I'm exactly where I've always dreamt I've been. As a matter of fact, and actually this might be one last point and that I need to make as well, that when you achieve your dreams, it doesn't mean you stop living. You have to find another dream.
Right.
And that's kind of where I am right now in my life. I've achieved so many wonderful things and I have such a crazy great life. I'm having to start focusing now on those things that I mentioned earlier that I've always dreamt about to go to the next life, the next level, right? Once you can hit a 5 iron 200 yards, okay, so now you got to do something else, right? You try to hit a 6 iron 200 yards. You got to do something else. You can't just settle. You just can't settle. You
Right.
just never can settle because when you do, you just die. You just die.
Yeah.
Well,
That.
Nick, this has been awesome. I have to imagine there's a lot of folks out there that will listen to this that will relate to your story of being at the low. But I love your redemptive nature of, in any high that you reach, that's your new low. Just you keep on building on the foundation that you're putting in place, and you're such an amazing example of that. So thanks for sharing that with us and with everyone that listens to this, because I know that'll make quite an
Oh,
impact on a lot of
it's my
people.
it's my pleasure. And again, anyone listening, if they want to find me, they can get in touch with you or Jack and find me, and I will be more than happy to talk with anyone. If anyone wants, and I'll buy them a cup of coffee to tell them my story to help them. They don't even have. Look, the more people I can help, the better the world will be. And I'm not trying to save the world. Um, I'm just trying to make a contribution so that when I go, I'm not really gone. that it just continues on and on and on. It's never gonna end. There's gonna always be struggles. There's always disappointment. There's gonna be all these things that go on in the world are going to continue to exist. But it doesn't have to be the end of the world. It doesn't have to be the end of the world.
Well, if you're looking for any more talented former military employees, I'm sure there will be several that listen to this and be interested in talking to you. I think it's not hard to sell people on Hawaii, of course. So
Right,
pretty
exactly.
good setup there.
I know, right? Thanks so much, Sean. I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nick.
All right, take care.
Awesome. We'll talk later.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Veteran Ventures Podcast. If you heard something interesting or found the show to be helpful, send it to a friend who is transitioning out of the military or considering a transition. We'd also really appreciate if you left a rating and review of the show. That helps us reach more people with these amazing stories of successful veterans. We'll catch you next time on the Veteran Ventures Podcast. And until then, go do the thing. Make that decision, have that conversation, and go find your next mission.